but you're right. All right, so we are underway here. Zach Sigman on the play. He was on a mulligan. He starts off on plains. Craig will fetch here. So Craig actually has a good amount of turn 1 disruption, actually. He has Spell Pierces, Dazes, and Force of Wills, all which could answer a possible, all 3 drop, which is really the magic number for Zach's deck.
Yeah.
So on Craig's side, he's going to go ahead and start with a Delver of Secrets. Looks like he has a pair of them in his hand, so he has a pretty aggressive draw. I'm not sure how disruptive his draw is, but certainly can bring in some beats.
He at least has a Daze.
Right.
So this is a great start. I mean, the pressure and a little bit of disruption. Maybe not the best possible hand, but against an opponent with 5 cards and missing red mana as well, could be enough to get it done.
Yeah, well, at least in his lands, he's missing red mana. Remember, Sigman's deck does play Simian Spirit Guides, so it can produce mana, unexpected mana sources. That said, you're right. It's Plains and Caracas for Zachary. And he's going to go play a main deck Rest in Peace.
And Craig's going to have to give this a read, trying to figure out what's going on here. Doesn't really do anything against Craig's list. The only thing it kind of does is shut down the Grim Lavamancers in the sideboard. But this is part of Zachary's Enlightened Tutor package alongside Helm of Obedience. So
yeah, it's interesting. Krempels can daze it. Kind of decide if he needs to daze it. Probably not. No. If he was playing Rug Delver, this would actually be a pain. It would stop his It would basically preemptively kill all his Tarmogoyfs, and it would shrink his Nimble Mongoose.
Yeah. Rug Delver, not very well equipped to handle Rest in Peace, as so much of his threat base is just shut off. But for Craig, with Stoneforge, Mystic, True Name Nemesis, doesn't really care about that too much.
Yeah. So Delver flips off of Brainstorm. Craig's going to cast Brainstorms. He's going to set up a turn where he gets to play another Delver here and flip it.
Well, I don't think... I don't know if he has a second land.
Maybe not. Maybe not then. So what he wants to do then is make sure that the second card down he buries, I believe, is an instant. That way, I guess, on turn 3, he can play a Delver, and he can flip it on turn 4. It's not ideal, but he does have a lot of permission, so this still may be okay.
Yeah, he has Daze Enforceable. I mean, there's no real risk here of anything too bad happening to him. But I'm sure Craig would have loved to have found a second land there.
Yeah. No Wastelands in Sigman's deck, so at least for now, that Tundra is safe. You see Jataxian Probe in Craig's hand. He may fire that off to dig deeper. If he does fire off the Probe, it will undo the setup for Delver number 2. But getting a land is pretty important too, so it's a value call here. Craig wants to see what he's working against.
Yeah.
His Ancient Tomb, Simian Spirit Guide, Pyroblast.
A mess of a hand there. Nothing really proactive. Even if Zachary is able to find a mountain and Pyroblast the Delver of Secrets, Craig has a backup one. So Zachary needs a lot more resources before he can do anything really that threatening.
Yeah, so if there was another red source, he'd be in a better spot, do something like Blood Moon with Pyroblast backup. The fact that he doesn't have a threat and doesn't have a permanent red source, those combined really means that his deck's fizzling a little bit here.
I think Zachary's trying to show us something written on his Simian Spirit Guide, but did not line it up with the camera, and so
we'll never know.
The world will never know.
All right, a swing for 3 from Krempels, no second land. It's a window for Zachary, but he still needs a threat. He plays Ancient Tomb for the turn.
And keep in mind, Craig's hand's pretty rolled up right now. I mean, he's got Force of Will and Daze, and he has drawn a red Elemental Blast.
Now, he had Pyroblast in his hand, right? Not Red Blast?
Correct.
Interesting show there that he chose to show the Red Blast. I think you'd want to show the Pyroblast there.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure Craig would even Force of Will this Pyroblast because it's such insurance he has another Delver. But now knowing that Zachary's hand still needs red mana and all it can do is react to one Insectile Aberration, Craig's willing to use the Force of Will here.
Yeah, so Insectile Aberration swings to hit Zachary down to 14, and another Insurance Policy Delver played there for Craig. And a draw by Zachary. It is a Buried Ruin. So who played a Rest in Peace anyway?
Yeah.
Buried Ruin, card from M13.
That sounds right.
I want to say. It is a land that you... M12, off by 1. Okay. You sack it to bring back an artifact.
Mm-hmm. So, not a bad value land, but of course not really what Zachary was looking for here.
Yeah. The reason he wants this is that his combos, especially Painter, Grindstone, both halves of it are artifacts, so this gives him some redundancy in assembling the combo.
Yeah.
yes, when it is interesting, you are a deck with main deck Rest in Peace and Buried Ruin. Sometimes some negative things happen there.
Yeah. I mean, we saw Brian Bronwyn do very well in Legacy Opens with Rest in Peace alongside Academy Ruins in the main deck, so.
Yeah, so Craig flips his second Delver, and that's going to be a very short clock. He Jataxian probes, sees that Pyroblast still in Zach's hand. And he's going to be able to get Zachary in a 3-turn clock. He also has an insurance policy against something like Ensnaring Bridge because he has another Force of Will plus blue card in his hand. But really, I think resolving Ensnaring Bridge, that's the out that Zach has right now. And he's going to pitch another Simian Spirit Guide to blow up another Insectile Aberration.
Now, there's some risk here. I think that Craig is now in a spot where Ensnaring Bridge suddenly matters against him. No, he has the Spell Pierce, and Zachary can't tap the Ancient Tomb. So he's safe.
Yep. And Zachary decides to take things into his own hands, taps Ancient Tomb, and game 1 goes to Craig Krempels.
Will not give Craig the satisfaction of actually dealing lethal there. So that was one of the rough times where you're a red, white, and light and tutor deck, and sometimes your opening hands are just going to be a lot of nonsense. A mulligan of 5 obviously doesn't help matters there. But.
Yeah, and especially a red-white deck, it has very little card selection in Legacy, and especially, this to me resembles, an extended a while ago we saw all-in red decks. Painter Servant in Legacy is kind of an evolution of those decks. We used to see Dragon Stompy as a deck, these really fast Rite of Flame, like Chrome Mock style, land a Blood Moon, land something red deck. I would say right now, Imperial Painter I think is the top version of that right now.
If I had to think of a card that represents volatility and variance in how your deck is going to play from game to game, Simian Spirit Guide. If your deck starts with 4 copies of Simian Spirit Guide, there's going to be a lot of range of how you play out there. And that first game, Zach caught the bad end. Yeah,
his deck didn't really show up. The only cards he played was a Rest in Peace and a couple of red spells, red blasts that he had to pitch, Simian Spirit Guides for.
So, welcome back. Before we delve into the sideboarding between these two players, we have a 6-month premium giveaway. Again, tweet your answer at SCG Live, hashtag SCG Premium. The correct responders, one will be selected for 6 months of Star City Games premium content. And again, this contest is run at the sole discretion of StarCityGames.com. Twitch TV is in no way affiliated with this giveaway. We've been talking a lot about Zachary's list, and for good reason. There's a lot of sweet stuff going on here. In the main deck, there is a copy of a single Planeswalker.
Yeah, exactly. And I was surprised to see this too, thinking the same question. But we were wondering, what Planeswalker is he running in his white-red painter deck? If you believe you know the answer, make sure you tweet it at us with the hashtag SCG Premium. Send the tweet at SCG Live, and at the conclusion of both of our top 4 matches, we will give away 6 months of Star City Games Premium.
A little hint here, it is a Planeswalker near and dear to my heart.
Yep, it would.
We've had some good work together. So, moving on to the sideboard, let's take a look at what both these players have. We have Zachary, Sigman there on your left-hand side. Either Sworn Candidates, 2 copies of Magus of the Moon, a Leyline of Sanctity, Rest in Peace, Spirit of the Labyrinth, Pyroblast, Red Elemental Blast, Shattering Spree, Swords of Plowshares, Volcanic Fallout, Wear Tear, Emrakul, the Aeon Star, Pyroclasm, Wrath of God. If you didn't know any better, you would guess that Zachary was playing with Mystical Tutor and not Enlightened Tutor, because there's so many one-of the spells.
He has a 14-card sideboard. I don't really know what the second Magus of the Moon is doing in there.
It's sweet 15. It's sweet to draw, and the matchups where he wants it, he really wants it. Yeah. I think the Pyroblast, the Elemental Blast, they're going to be coming in here. I think the Pyroclasm and the Wrath of God are both valuable, along with the Volcanic Fallout, the Swords of Plowshares. If Zachary is able to stem the early rush of attackers, he can cobble together whatever combos he wants to at his leisure. He can try to resolve Blood Moon and play around cards like Spell Pierce, but it's all about stemming the early tide. Where that game got away from him, setting aside the mulligan of 5, was that Craig just started with a fast Delver that Zachary couldn't answer. That forces him to play into Craig's tempo plays, so anything to alleviate that is very valuable for Zachary in the post-board games.
Yeah, one thing he may also board in here, as we looked at before, was Magus of the Moon. Despite the fact that Craig's deck does have removal spells in it, it also plays 0 basic lands. So there is a chance here that he just wants to upgrade the 3-mana lock pieces that he's playing. Magus is an interesting proposition, right? If Craig can leave up, say, Lightning Bolt and a red source and not tap it, then Magus doesn't really do anything, but it certainly would punish Craig were he to ever tap out.
Right.
And I think they probably come in. There are some lock pieces. Like, in his main deck, Zach's playing a lot of different lock pieces. And I have to imagine he reevaluates each piece based on the matchup he's playing. For example, here he has a main deck leyline of Sanctity, great against Thoughtseize, not so good against Spell Pierce.
He has a lot of flexibility too. You know, let's say he removes the Rest in Peace because it has very little utility against Craig, then the Helm of Obedience can come out as well. So we can free up a lot of slots, taking out these soft lock pieces that are either predicated on finding a second piece or don't really have a lot of utility outside of the scenario where he puts A and B together. In Craig's sideboard, a Sword of Feast and Famine, 2 Grim Lawmancers, 4 Meddling Mages, 2 copies of Rest in Peace, 2 Fluster Storms, 2 copies of Red Elemental Blast, a Swords to Plowshare, and a Wear Tear of his own. I think that Craig's going to want the Wear Tear here. Zachary is both an artifact and enchantment-oriented deck, so Wear Tear is about as good as it gets here. The Swords to Plowshares is valuable in breaking up the combo. I think he may want to go to Meddling Mage as well. Just general disruption. You know, when you're playing against a deck with Enlightened Tutor, there's often going to be kind of these self-enforced mulligans, either drawing pieces at the wrong time or just drawing your Enlightened Tutors. And Meddling Mage can really make that even more pronounced.
Yeah, Meddling Mage is interesting in the matchup. Craig may not be sure what he wants to Meddling Mage, but based on the board, he can probably make a pretty good call. Not to mention, he does play 3 Jataxian Probes in the main deck. So in the situations where he's allowed to cheat with Meddling Mage and make sure he hits something in Zach's hand, it's going to be a very powerful card.
Absolutely.
Remember, Zach will be on the play once again. Last game, he was punished a little bit by his own deck. He kept half of some combos, never found half number 2. And cards like Force of Will, very strong in Craig's deck. Craig had double Force and double blue card to back up his Delvers.
Zachary is spending a lot of equity in deck construction in the way that he plays, trying to resolve single spells where he doesn't have a lot of ways to push them through with the exception of his Red Elemental Blast. So Force of Will is likely to be very good in this matchup.
Yeah, a lot of times we'll see Zach expends multiple cards on one spell. So the 2-for-1 downside that normally comes with Force of Will isn't even always there.
And Zachary's deck is built assuming that a lot of these cards are going to be game winners on their own, that they're going to be worth multiple resources, many points of damage off of Ancient Tombs and so forth. And the key spells get encountered. I mean, it sounds simple to say, but Zachary's deck is not that robust against just Force of Will and other soft counters in general.
Yeah. Both players going to game 2. Remember, if you're joining us, we are in the top 4 right now of our Legacy Open. I'm Matthias Hunt, joined by Patrick Sullivan. This is Zachary Sigman and Craig Krempels playing Red-White Painter versus Blue-White Red Delver. Over on the other side of the bracket, we have Jeremiah Rudolph, also undefeated here. This is the matchup of the players who drew into the top 8. Rudolph is 1-2-0 with his Blue-Green Cloud Post deck to bring him into the semis against James Rinkovich. He's playing Charlotte's Bug. Also in the top 4, he had a 2-1 victory over Alex Bertoncini. So one of those two will meet the winner of this match in the finals. And
well, once we have more updates from that side of the bracket, we'll keep you posted, of course.
Absolutely. On to game 3. So before Zach on the play. Looks like players are still on to sideboarding at the moment. But
still waiting on a trivia contest winner.
One thing when looking at Zach's deck is, I suppose, like, how good of an opening hand is he looking for? Say he has, a great hand that folds to a Force of Will. There are some decks, like a Belcher-style decks that keep that hand all day. They have a turn 1 Belcher, loses to Force of Will, wins against everything else. Sign me up, let's go. In this sort of matchup, I'm wondering how much Zach wants to keep those really fast one-shot hands, or whether he wants hands with, 2 or 3 powerful spells.
Some amount of it will depend whether or not it's on the play or on the draw, because on the play, if Craig just plays a blue land and passes, now all of a sudden Spell Pierce and Daze potentially invalidate those openings as well. I think when Zachary's on the play, he should be inclined to just go for it. Craig only has the 4 copies of Force of Will, and the other key part of it is how many 6-card hands is he going to get realistically that beat Force of Will plus backup from Craig? That's asking a lot. So I think on the play, if Zachary has something like turn 1 Blood Moon off of a 2-mana land and a Simian Spirit Guide, he should just put his head down and run right in there.
And we'll see if that works. All right, players have presented, and this is Zachary Sigman on the play here. We'll see whether or not he gets an opener worth keeping. He was on 5 cards for game 1 and didn't really assemble any of the lock pieces he wanted. Looks like he is happier with what he has right now, though.
He reached for his deck there.
Maybe not. It's close.
Yeah, this is not. It looks like this one's close. I don't think this is any Hollywooding right now.
There's always that inclination when you lose a game basically off mulliganing. Or at least I have had to take a long time to unlearn that, where, you know, I would keep very mediocre hands game 2, not wanting to double mull to 5.
Yeah. And each game, it's its own separate thing. So if it was right the first time, it should be right the second time.
All right, just a Arid Mesa to start the game from Sigman. And Craig, with his own fetch line, he's going to attack and probe, see what it is that he has to dodge. And on Sigman's side, we see a single land hand kept. It has a Blood Moon, a Magus of the Moon, 2 swords, an Enlightened Tutor, and a Grindstone.
Yeah, this is a rough opening hand. I mean, he can potentially defend himself for a very long time with those 2 copies of Swords of Plowshares, but he needs to draw very well from here.
Yeah. Ancient Tomb being probably the ideal draw.
Oh, yeah. Ancient Tomb, there's 4 copies in this list, and it would be excellent right here.
Interestingly enough, if he plays Ancient Tomb, he locks himself. If he were to do that, he would lock himself off white mana. It'd be good enough, though. It wouldn't. You know, we see Craig's hand positioned really well here. He has Spell Pierce and Force and blue card. So even if Zachary hits one of these strong plays, it's unlikely that it's going to get to resolve.
Yeah. But Zachary doesn't care, you know, if he gets locked out of white mana, whatever. If he's able to resolve an early Blood Moon from this spot, he is such a huge favorite to win the game. Just almost doesn't matter what else is going on.
Yeah, but that mulligan from him, it seems a little greedy. And I understand the not wanting to mulligan again, but a lot of things have to go right for him. And I don't know, especially because he has to play around Force of Will and Spell Pierce. I mean, he obviously doesn't know that half of it, but I'm unconvinced he's going to be able to break through.
Another tough thing about that hand is if Craig produces a threat, Zachary's obligated to go get his plateau with the Arid Mesa so he can draw red spells and cast his Swords of Plowshares. And at that point, Wasteland becomes game over potentially. So there's a lot of risks involved with this hand, but the upside's huge. I mean, if he is able to find a 2-mana land or just running lands, he has an opportunity to resolve Blood Moon and just steal the game.
Yeah, turn 1 ponder there from Craig. We'll see, did Zachary hit the land? And he did. Buried Ruin. Not, yeah, Craig, that's fine. That only makes 1 mana.
Yeah.
But it's a start. Grindstone the play for Zachary Sigman. I can't imagine this will bait the Force of Will out of Craig.
No, it's got to be Blood Moon, a second combo piece. I don't think this is worth it. Unless he's committed to leaving up Spell Pierce for a long time. I mean, that's the only other scenario where you'd fight over the Grindstone. Even still, I just don't think it's worth it. And Craig comes to the same conclusion.
Yeah, he still can hold up Spell Pierce. You know, most of the big spells here that he has to worry about do cost 3, and we see Wear Tear the draw for Craig. So now he has access to destroy a Grindstone. It just seems like he has all the answers for any lock piece that could show up.
Yeah, he's got a great situation here.
No threat yet. That's the one downside. So he's going to have to use Ponder and other cantrips to find something like a Delver. But he's really in no rush.
And you know, I think Craig just wants land drops here. He probably wants to just try to win this game with True Name Nemesis because he's looking at the multiple copies of Swords to Plowshares that are in Zachary's hand. Trying to get Delver of Secrets online in this game is going to be a challenge. So it wouldn't surprise me. I believe Craig already has a True Name Nemesis in hand. And so I believe he may just be searching for land number 3. That might just be a much easier path to victory.
Yeah, didn't find it, but because he's likely to crack this fetch, he may still pick one of these 3 cards to keep before shuffling away. I don't think he keeps the Daze. We may see him keep Delver or Brainstorm, however. It looks like his draw for the turn is going to be Brainstorm. And he may still keep the Delver and not develop his mana base just so he can have a threat. Well, it'd be interesting to see how he plays it. Like I said, he's really not in any rush. He has great answers to anything that Zachary could draw. And right now, Zachary actually hasn't drawn a great hand. You know, he's not presenting any threats yet.
Right. So Zachary getting a Plains here, to me, indicates that he's planning on using the Enlightened Tutor.
Yeah, absolutely. Over on the other side of the bracket between James Rinkovich and Jeremiah Rudolph, we have Rinkovich taking game 1. So Shardless Bug up a game over Jeremiah Rudolph's blue-green Cloud Post deck.
Now, something that helps James in that matchup, which is another thing that Ely doesn't have access to, is Tarmogoyf. He just has a much quicker clock. Ely was just messing around with Baleful Strixes and Shardless Agents.
That's true. He was well under like a general creature efficiency curve. You know, 1/1s for 2, 2/2s for 3. And what a draw. Zachary, fetches, doesn't enlighten tutor, blind draws the mountain, and you can see it with Craig's hands. Just
Oh, that's some fake incredulousness from Craig.
yeah.
I know that look.
Oh yeah. But it does give Zachary a shot here.
Oh, I mean, yeah, he can cast the spells in his hand. That's a good start.
What I like is the blind fetching of planes and then getting mountain. Like I agreed when you said I thought it was an enlightened tutor, but then it wasn't.
Because Zachary really wants to draw a land there, so thinning out doesn't make a lot of sense. Also,
What if he drew a plane?
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, there's 4 planes, 4 mountains in this list. So yeah, absolutely. So a bizarre play, but
One that
Zachary
panned
did draw
out, yeah.
the perfect card here, given the circumstances.
All right, so that play's made. Craig's gonna go ahead and it looks like crack a fetch land here. I'm not sure what phase we're in. I think we're probably just on Zach's end step. But
Yes.
And no plays yet. We do know that Zachary does have some Blood Moon and Magus of the Moon available to him.
But he's not willing to cast it just into the face of Craig's open mana, and correctly so.
Yeah.
Craig can pretty trivially fend off those cards with any reasonable hand.
So Brainstorm from Craig Krempels. He had caught that off the ponder, and this time he cracked a fetch line before brainstorming, so gets to see 3 new cards, and they are helpful indeed. He sees 2 more lands and a Batter Skull. One of the lands is actually a fetch land, so he'll be able to get 2 more mana sources and shuffle away the cards he puts back.
And that's great. I think Craig is actually going to want to keep 2 mana sources here and just shuffle away the Batter Skull, because Craig would like to play True Name Nemesis with mana up. He's got to be worried about Zachary, chaining together multiple threatening spells or, drawing a Red Blast to push something through. So
Yeah, there's some things he needs to do. He wants to have mana up for True Name. He also wants to keep a blue card in reserve for that Force of Will. Right now he has a Spell Pierce, a Force, and the only other blue card he has is True Name. So I think he'd really like to find one more blue card so that he can cast the True Name and still have Force be online. At least either that or he wants to get 5 lands in play.
yeah. So at some point, Craig is going to have to pick his turn, and this is going to be the turn where he takes a deep breath, plays True Name Nemesis, and then hopes Zachary doesn't do anything too destructive on his own turn. And then Craig can win pretty comfortably from here with a non-killable threat, essentially, and a lot of disruption left over.
Yeah, I mean, he does have, a lot of his counters are soft counters. Things like Spell Pierce do become outclassed as the game goes on. This is a pretty safe spot for Craig. The worry would be that Zachary would play Blood Moon with Red Blast up, but he knows that there's no Red Blast in Zach's hand and no second red. And Zachary can't draw both of them this turn.
Correct. That's the thing. Craig still has full information on Zachary's hand, as there's been 2 draw steps, and they've just been 2 lands, and he Gitaxian probed earlier.
Yeah, Blood Moon, the play from Zachary. I'm fine. I'm wondering why he went for Blood Moon instead of Magus of the Moon. I feel like he'd want to go with. Well, actually, it's interesting. One plays around like Blood Moon can be spell pierced, but Magus can be hit with kill spells.
I think the problem is that Magus of the Moon just, if Craig has a lightning bolt in his hand, it doesn't even do anything. Blood Moon's
That's
the highest.
true.
Blood Moon's just the highest upside play there. Craig being willing to tap out for True Name Nemesis probably means he has Force of Will, but at least you're trading with Force of Will there.
Yeah, trading with Force. And you're right. Craig does have the lightning bolt in hand as well, so not worried at all about Magus of the Moon. So we saw in Zach's hand. I don't believe there were any other. When we first saw that there were other lock pieces going on, and it's a second Blood Moon. And Craig, because he has mana open, is going to be able to float the Wear Tear and make the play.
And this is going to be a fuse, too. I mean, the Grindstone leaves play.
Oh, wow.
Which is
Grindstone's an artifact. He gets everything.
the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah. Gonna go ahead and go and float 2 mana. And yeah, Wear Tear, both halves, clearing Zachary's board. Wear Tear, probably the biggest player from Dragon's Maze in Legacy.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I would say so. Voice of Resurgence didn't actually end up making it Legacy. Made it as far as Modern, but not too much Legacy play from the card.
2/2s for 2 that don't stop your opponent from casting busted spells don't have a lot of action in the format.
The busted spells are on your turn. Yeah, no, I agree. Magus of the Moon. Zachary's going to try for yet another Blood Moon. And why burn the Lightning Bolt when you can burn a Swords? Craig's going to Swords it. And even if the Magus were to resolve, I'm not sure Zachary gets this game.
No. It's unlikely here. And he's just picked up appears to be a Lightning Bolt, too.
Yeah, goes ahead and flashes the Lightning Bolt. So this is a swing. This is for 6. Going to put Zachary down to 9. We see a pair of lightning bolts in Craig's hand. True Name Nemesis has protection from Zachary, and this looks like it's going to be the game.
Yeah. Even if Zachary Swords to Plowshares this Insectile Aberration, it does not prevent death here.
Yeah, he has Pyroclasm. That'll take care of the Insectile Aberration. Does not take care of True Name, and this should be lethal from Craig. Say Zachary's best out here, as well as going to say, was ensnaring Bridge and dumping his hand. But he never had enough lands to make that play. So Craig knocks Zachary down to 6. And I think he's just going to go for it. Lightning Bolt and Second Bolt. And that will send Craig on to the finals.
No fuss, no muss. Two very efficient wins there from Craig. Mulligan to 5 from Zachary, and then a hand with nowhere to go, really, game 2. No answer to True Name Nemesis, and not fast enough to do anything relevant. Now Craig is going to be going on to the finals.
Yeah, and Zachary Sigman there, game 2, did make a game of it. He kept a hand that had the potential to flop. He kept a high risk, high reward hand, but it turns out the reward wasn't high enough. He kept the risk, made the risk, but still wasn't able to pull in.
Yeah, so